Welcome to Unsuitable on Ray Radio, the award-winning financial services and business advisory podcast that challenges your old-school business practices and the traditional business suit culture. Our guests are industry professionals and experts who will challenge you to think beyond the suit and tie while offering you meaningful modern solutions to help you enhance your company's growth. I'm your host, Dave Kane. Relationships are critical in business regardless of your industry or what you offer your customers. Today's guest, for example, plays primarily in the dental industry. However, you'll find the relationship strategies he's used over the course of his career can be used to drive success in all businesses. Matt Scherer, president of PMA Practice Transitions, a dental practice sales and transition company serving clients in Ohio and Pennsylvania, spent nearly 17 years with Bank of America before embarking on his current role. And while these two careers appear to be completely separate, you'll learn why they have more in common than you think. On this episode of Unsuitable, Matt's going to give us some networking, business development, and referral relationship tips that can help you drive results in your own company. Welcome to Unsuitable, Matt.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good to see you. You know, before we begin, I did notice in your bio that you retired from the United States Navy Reserve in 2008 after serving 20 and a half years of service.
That is correct.
And certainly on behalf of our listeners and the employees at Ray & Associates, we want to thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. You know, we mentioned that you're the president of PMA Practice Transitions, even though we're not talking about that entity today. Why don't you fill us in? Give us a little elevator speech of what you guys do.
Sure. PMA Practice Transitions is a dental sales organization where we sell or help sell dental practices for the doctor who wants to exit. So I work with buyers and sellers. Sellers obviously are my main source of income, but I work with the buyers as well to transition the practice smoothly.
And we mentioned Ohio and Pennsylvania, but actually you go all over the country to do this deal.
We're starting out in Ohio and Pennsylvania, but the goal is to obviously grow this and spread our wings, so to speak, and venture out into other markets. Try to stay within a three-hour radius right now of kind of the Cleveland area.
Cleveland area?
Yeah, it covers pretty much, the Cincinnati through, western PA up through Erie.
So you're a Cleveland guy.
Cleveland guy, born and raised.
How the Browns going to do this year?
Hopefully, we'll see.
We'll see. You're not going on a limb.
Listen, I'm a true blue Browns fan, and I just get disappointed every year. But hopefully this year will be different.
I think the over/under is 4.5 wins.
I'd
see
take
four.
The under.
You take the under.
Right now, I'll take the under. We'll see after tonight. How about that?
Good. I want to go back before we start to PMA again, just statistics that you gave us to make sure that we have this correct. Sure. I did see that over the course of your career, you've been involved with 550 dental transactions in excess of $226 million.
That is correct.
Let me read that again. That's pretty impressive. 550 dental transactions in excess of $226 million.
Yes.
You don't do that. You don't get to that place without doing a lot of networking.
That is very true.
And that's what we're going to kind of talk about a little bit and talk to us a little bit about, the quality and the quantity of building a network. I mean, what's your secret?
So I'll kind of take you back a little bit to when I started with the group called Practice Solutions. It's a healthcare lending division for Bank of America. I primarily was dental, although when I started I was doing dental, vet, and medical financing. I would say probably 90% of my business was in the dental space. When I took over my market was 5 states. I had Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Indiana. And the gentleman who I took over for had a larger territory. He had those states plus D.C., New York, New Jersey, lived in New Jersey. So you can imagine he didn't get that over this way too much. So when I took over the position, I had a small network of centers of influences, people who would, send me business. So my job was, as they call it, a business development officer, is to go out there and find more business. So when I took it over, I think the territory was doing $3 million a year, just because, and that was just low-hanging fruit, just stuff that he was, picking off the ground. So my job was to grow my universe list, is what we called it. Your universe list is your centers of influence, people who can provide you business. So, I hit the streets running, and it's turning over every rock and looking under every little crevice to find out who is an influence in the dental community. That's talking to buyers, that's talking to brokers, who they use, what kind of who's the CPA that you use, doc, who's the attorney on the deal, and then getting their name and getting their information and contacting them and kind of building that network from there.
So your universal list, and that applies whether you're pursuing, dental business, CPA business, your marketing business, architecture, legal.
Absolutely.
It's all kind of the same, the same blueprint. And I think you will attest, that's not an 8 to 5 job.
It is not.
In fact, you might argue most of that networking is after 5 o'clock.
Correct.
Or before 8 o'clock.
Right.
And I suppose you had to find out, we'll stick with dental for a second, but you pretty much had to find out where do the dental contacts, where the dentists hang out.
Yes, correct.
And they're working 8 to 5, so you got to find them.
Exactly. And a lot of that, as you stated, is after hours, or after the 5 o'clock hour, if you will.
So did you adjust your day accordingly, or did you just work tremendously long days?
A little bit of both. I would say the average week was probably 65 plus hours, especially in the beginning, because I had to build, I had a very small network when I started, so I had to build this network, and, I built it from maybe 20 contacts to probably over 70 when I, put in my 2-week notice.
So it was meet people, and meet more people.
Meet people, and find out who they meet, and who they meet, and who they meet, and building that network, and then going to meet those people and finding out if they're a player in the market. And the way I built my territory was you had A, B, C players and 1, 2, 3 players. So an A player was somebody who had a lot of business for you, right? And the 1, 2, 3 was, 1, they were on my page 100% or close to 100%. 2, they were kind of 50-50. And then 3, they weren't on my page as far as giving me business. And then obviously the B's, they have some business, and then the C's really don't have a lot of business. So I would rank them, A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3. So I set up my universe like that, and then obviously your A1s are your players, right? The people who can give you the most amount of business and who are on your page and support you all the time. The A2s and A3s are the ones that you worked at quite a bit. Same with the B's, the B1s are the B2s, the B3s.
Right. And I would assume, and you can attest to this, is that over the course of your career, you learn to, how to target and look at the quality leads versus the quantity. And I would guess you probably spent a lot of time going down the wrong street with the wrong referral. And we all laugh at that, but we know what that means.
Yes. Yeah. So you're right. Part of the process is meeting somebody, for the first time, even if they end up being a C3. You want to meet with them. You want to talk to them. You want to see what they are, and what they're all about, and how if you can give them business and they can give you business. But I'll tell you, you may not meet with the C3s all the time or the A3s. But you certainly keep them in your list, and you certainly keep in contact with them, because you just never know when they can be turned to an A2 or an A1, or from a C to an A, things of that nature. So,
over the course of my career, I spent a lot of time with a lot of business development folks, and I as I get to them, they just know. I mean, after they get the experience, they know where to go. They know what to do. They don't necessarily need a very sophisticated piece of software to keep track of the leads, but as we all get older, we kind of forget that stuff and
Sure.
forget those leads. So you have any advice for software or lead software? How do you track this thing other
Sure.
than in between your ears?
Yeah.
It's all going to be between the ears.
It is going to be between the ears. If possible, at Bank of America, we used a CRM product that kept track of everything. We're in the process of implementing through PMA a CRM product so that we can better keep track of things. But right now, I do it the old school way. I use an Excel spreadsheet, which is a little daunting and tasking at times, but I think once we have a CRM in place, that'll help tremendously.
You mentioned early on networking has changed. There's social media. Are you using social media to network? LinkedIn, Twitter?
Absolutely.
Are you using a lot of that?
Absolutely. Yep. All the dental practices that I list today go onto LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. So.
And when did you start using that? In the last several years, or?
Yeah, I would say when I was at Bank of America, Bank of America is very protective of its brand and didn't really wasn't really in the social media game as much as they should have been. Starting to kind of turn that corner, but I was absolutely from day one when I started at PMA. I told Rebecca, we have to get on social media and get this out because that's where the dentists are, especially on Facebook. All the younger people are out on Facebook. So
Seeing that, you found that out by out networking and asking questions and visiting. That's how you found that piece out.
absolutely.
You're not going to find that sitting at your desk.
No,
You got to just meet and talk.
that's it.
So, piece of advice for let's start with maybe a young business developer. Are there 2 or 3 pieces of advice you can give that individual? And again, it doesn't matter what industry they're in. It's just this is business development, meeting people. Give us some advice. You're very experienced in this area, even though you need some gray hair.
That'll come in time.
That'll come in time. Silver. It's silver hair,
Silver
not
hair,
gray.
That's right. I would say, if you're starting out as a young person, first of all, figure out your niche, right, where you want to go. And then, look everywhere. I mean, turn over every rock, look under every crevice. You just never know where that person might be that could provide you business. And talk to everybody and find out. I think one of the keys is to find out who's in the network. So, hey Dave, who do you speak to? Who's your center of influences? And then you go to them and continue and grow that way. I think that's the best way. And don't be afraid to call somebody and have a conversation.
Ask for leads.
Ask for leads, absolutely. Ask who they know. Ask.
What kind of entertainment dollars do you spend in a week or a month in the networking? I maybe a loaded question, but obviously you got to spend a fair amount of time, dinners, other social events. I mean, that has to be in the budget.
It is. Really don't have I shouldn't say we don't have an entertainment budget. Alan might hear this and not be happy with it, but
Because you got an unlimited budget.
that's
huh?
right.
All right,
Unlimited.
love it.
When I can speak.
The sales guys never love a budget.
You know what? You can't put a number on it.
No,
right?
It doesn't. That's right.
You do what you can and you spend what you can, but you're reasonable. Lunches, dinners, light entertainment. When I started at Bank of America, we had pretty much no budget, carte blanche, and it's take people out to ball games and get to know people and wine and dine them and things like that. Obviously, I have my network built. I didn't have to do that at PMA. Not suggesting that you go out and spend a lot of money, but you don't need to. A lunch here and there with somebody goes a long way.
With a network, in the network, and creating your universe list, how often would you stay in touch with the members of your universe list?
All the time. I'd go through it and call who I hadn't called in, depending on if they're an A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Obviously, your A1s, you're going to be calling probably weekly, just having conversation, bringing up if there's something new out there or something that you heard in the industry, things like that, just so that you're not calling them to, just call them. They say there's 3 types of meetings that you have with somebody. I'll back up a little bit. You have a business meeting. You have a business meeting / personal meeting, and then you have a personal meeting. So you got to kind of mix those 3 together. It can't always be about business when you're calling people. Hey, how's the kids? I heard this. I heard you were interested, and I knew you like car racing, and heard there's a big race this weekend. Are you going? Things like that.
Is the tribe going to go on a run and
right?
Stuff like
exactly.
that.
Yep. So, you have to do those types of things. So it's not all about just entertaining and things like that. So going through the list, obviously, like I said, your A1s you're going to call all the time. At least once a week. The A2s, the A3s. Obviously, you're going to call the A3s quite a bit too, believe it or not. It's probably as much as your A1s because they're not on your page yet, so you got to get them on your page. The Bs and the Cs, you're going to determine, you're going to know how often you have to call those people. It might be once a quarter that you call them, but you always want to stay in touch with everybody on your universe list because you never know if you can get, let's say a C1, somebody who has some business but not a lot of business. If you get 10 C1s, that's 10 deals that you didn't get if you'd never called that person.
Right. So you have a internal grading system of your universal list. So I hear your recommendation would be no matter what your grading list is, whether it's A, B, C, red, white, blue,
yep.
green, yellow, you have to have some kind of grading list to support your efforts and
sure.
help you with your efforts. It's just a organizational piece.
Correct. And I also used to track how much business I got from each source. So
and
if I got
you use an Excel spreadsheet to do that?
I used an Excel spreadsheet to do that.
You pretty good in Excel?
No, not really.
You have one of those tables that turns or whatever that's called?
Yeah, I have no idea how to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not an Excel guy. I believe I can make a column. That's about it, and I can put a number.
Does your Excel sheet have like colors on it and stuff?
No, no colors. But I had it by state.
Had it by state.
I had it by state.
That's a start. Can you sort it? You sort it?
Yeah, I could sort it. I could do that.
They have Excel classes at the universities up there. It costs you like $99.
Right.
You can probably do one online.
Right.
Put that in your budget since you don't have a budget.
I should. I didn't say I didn't have a budget.
You said you didn't know what the budget is. You have a budget.
I have a budget. That's right.
To ignore that. What are your again? That's maybe repetitive of what we talked about before, but maybe your top 3 things that you do with your universal list. I think it's worth repeating. We said it a couple times, but what are maybe your three top things that go through your mind as you're going through your list, your Excel list? Obviously, you go through a cadence in your head. Can you share that? Can you identify that?
I can. I think I touched on it already. First thing is go through that list constantly. And one of the things I didn't mention is whether you're 1 year in the industry or 10 plus years in the industry, you can always grow your universe list because people enter it and they leave it. So you never want to get comfortable with just, okay, I got these great 10 sources, I'm going to stick with them and move on, because I'll tell you, people, leave the market and like I said, you never know when a C player becomes an A player. So I would say continue to grow, whether you've been in the market for a long time or not, continue to grow that list, or try to continue to grow.
Don't get comfortable.
Don't get comfortable.
Persevere.
That's it. If you could add a person a year, that was my goal, was to add a new source a year. Now, this was 10 years after being in the industry, and I pretty much knew everybody who was a player in the market, but you'd be surprised. There were new players that pop up. So.
Now, this is kind of a give and take a game where in your universe list you're gonna ask for a lead.
Yes.
Are you gonna give them a lead?
Absolutely.
And you track that on your Excel spreadsheet. Give
Absolutely.
and get.
Give and get. Yep. You got to give a little to get a little.
And obviously something is working for you. if we go back to, I dropped my statistics there, so I had to get off the mic, but something's been working for you. If I go back to the statistics where over the course of your career, you've dealt with excess of $226 million of transactions. So whatever you're doing, it's got to be working long term. So, I think there's a lot going on there. So let's it's just before we just have a few minutes left, but, let's just kind of wrap up. In my mind, what I've heard you say is number one, quality versus quantity with regard
Absolutely.
to building a network.
Yes.
Quality of your network. It doesn't do any good if we have 100 D players.
That's right.
We need major league players on there. Second thing is just it helps you who to target on that list. Continue to target and work really hard to continue to build those referrals, give and take. Look at that list time and time again.
Absolutely.
Kind of wrap it up.
Absolutely.
So, our guest today has been Matt Scherer, president of PMA Practice Transition. Thanks again for joining us today
I
on
appreciate it.
Unsuitable.
Wasn't
Great
as
insight.
It wasn't as painful as somebody told me it was.
Oh,
Gonna be.
yeah. Well, see, you're a good guest, and I think what we'd like to do is you'd be a great one-on-one resource for in training for a lot of people who want to get into the business development. I think you have great to offer. And in exchange, maybe they can show you how to use Excel
There you
a
go.
little bit.
Works for me.
Have you ever wanted to see a podcast in action? Now you can. Check out the Ray & Associates channel on YouTube to watch episodes of this podcast and other great videos from Ray. You can also check out our website at raycpa.com/podcast for additional articles and insight. As always, don't forget to subscribe to Unsuitable on iTunes. Until next time, I'm Dave Kane, encouraging you to loosen up your tie and think outside the box.